Wise Child by Monica Furlong, Chapter 12, I Run Away. In the days that followed, something seemed to have changed between Juniper and me. The lessons I had loved began to seem less interesting, and the ones I didn't like, the ones that involved learning long, long passages by heart, began to seem unbearable. I had always learned quickly, now suddenly I became very slow and unwilling. It made me cross and disagreeable. My problems with learning, however, were as nothing to my problems with the outdoor work or with preparing the herbs. Pearl could not get me out of bed in the morning. Now, once or twice, Juniper came herself, but in the end she just left me, and I would come down yawning long after breakfast was cleared away, which in turn made me cross and difficult for the rest of the morning. I did not scald the clothes properly in the dairy. I did not scald the cloths properly in the dairy, nor wash the plates clean. I left the smelly pots of herbs to burn on the fire. I spread the drying herbs so thickly that they got mouldy. I burnt a skirt in front of the fire, and dropped the precious vase as I dusted it. I was not trying to be naughty or awkward. I was just absent-minded. "You're in another place," Juniper said. All the things that had given me such delight in Juniper's house, the stories, the lessons, the songs, the lovely and plentiful food, her kindness to me, sitting on her lap, feeling that I was a child whom somebody wanted, all seemed not to matter any more. I had no idea why, but I knew ever since I had left Maeve that I would have to go to her. One morning Juniper was away on a root collecting expedition, and I was yawning over my Latin. I knew that I could not stay with Juniper any longer, that it was time to go to Maeve. I went upstairs, packed a few of my things in a basket, wrapped my warm cloak around me, and set off down the cliff path. It was a fine sunny morning, not too cold, and I skipped and ran, knowing that I must get to Maeve's house before nightfall. I skirted the village so that no one would see me, and I set off on the long walk northward. Since I had lived with Juniper, I had become used to long walks, filled with good food and wearing good boots. I found them no hardship. I scarcely gave Juniper a second thought. In fact, I did not give anything much thought. It was as if my mind was clear and empty, concentrated on just one thing, the act of finding Maeve. I remembered very little about that journey, only that tired and hungry, with twilight curling over the landscape, I came to Salon and the walls of the great park. Away in the distance, on a rise, I could see a big house. Warily following a wall of the park for what seemed miles, I came at last to some great iron gates with a cottage set in the wall beside them. I knocked on the door. I could hear the sound of a crying baby within, but it was a long time before a woman answered the door. A woman with the marks of poverty upon her. Her clothes were in rags, her teeth were black, and her hair was unwashed and uncombed. I could see beyond her, in a poor room with no fire, several small children, equally bedraggled, sitting on the floor. "Yes," she said, "I have come to see Maeve the Fair. She is expecting me." "She didn't say she was expecting anyone." The woman was plainly doubtful that I was telling the truth. "I can't disturb her tonight." "You must tell her I am here now," I said firmly. "Tell her that her daughter has come to see her." I could see a flicker of interest on the woman's face. "You don't look a bit like her," she said. "Nevertheless, I am her child. She told me to come." The woman hesitated, then started to take off her apron, though it revealed only an equally dirty dress underneath. "I'll go up to the house and see," she said. Then, eyeing me in not a particularly friendly way, "I suppose you'd better come in and wait here." It was not a room in which I enjoyed waiting. It was bitterly cold. The baby, lying in a wooden box in the corner, cried without stopping. There was a smell of excrement, of decayed food, of dirty human bodies. The children could not take their eyes off me, and the dirtiest of them, who had a wall eye, got on his feet with difficulty and toddled over to look at me more closely, planting his sticky little hand on my blue cloak. All the children were very thin, and I guessed even hungrier than my cousins. Their mother was not long gone, treating me with an obsequiousness that she had not shown when she did not know who I was. She led me out of the house with a lantern and up the long path to the house. She insisted on accompanying me and led me to the big front door, with steps leading up to it and a portico She knocked on the door, which opened at once into an enormous hall, with flags and a huge fire. A mastiff rose to its feet in front of the fire and lumbered curiously toward me, growling. "Down there!" said Maeve's voice imperiously, and a slim woman in a vivid orange dress rose from where she had been sitting before the fire with a young man. "Well, wise child," she said, with a world of satisfaction in her voice, "so you decided to come see your old mother. A very sensible decision." She brushed my cheek with a kiss and rang a small handbell that summoned a frightened-looking girl about my own age. "Take my daughter to her room," she said coldly, "and find her some clean clothes. We will eat in half an hour." And that is the end of chapter 12.